Okay guys, section 13.2, imaginary numbers. We've finally gotten here. We've talked about it a lot this year, but here we go. Finally, imaginary numbers. It says that you know that there are no real number solutions to the equation x squared equals negative 16 because no real number multiplied by itself gives you a negative. Okay? Good. Now, if you take another course in algebra, which you will, you'll learn that equations like this have solutions that are imaginary numbers, okay? The imaginary number I is equal to the square root of negative 1, okay? And it says that all imaginary numbers involve I. That's true. Some examples are 3i, or minus 5i over 2, or 2i times square root 3, okay? Remember that the square root, let's say the square root of negative 5, well that equals the square root of negative 1 times the square root of 5. Okay? And remember the square root of negative 1, we're just going to call it, we're going to give it a name, it's easier to write. We're going to call it I. Okay? So in fact this would be root 5i. We'd write the number in front of the I. Okay? Now, or no, actually since it's a root we would write I root 5. I'm sorry, we'd write the I in front of the square root. Okay? Now, they put it right here for us. They said that I is equal to the square root of negative 1. I squared, of course, is equal to the square root of negative 1 squared, which is just the number underneath, negative 1. Okay? Now, let's take that idea and let's look at this first example. Okay? And the great thing about I is that all we have to do, well, let's work with this one. It says solve x squared is equal to negative 16. Let's take the square root of both sides, and we're going to get that x is equal to plus or minus root negative 16. Now here's what I do with root negative 16. I actually separate it into root negative 1 and root 16. Well, I know that root 16 is 4. And now I know that root negative 1 is I. So the answer to this problem is x is equal to plus or minus 4 4i, 4 times I. Okay? Which remember is the square root of negative 1. That's it. Whenever I have the square root of a negative number, I pull out that negative 1, and then I can deal with the square root of a positive number, and I just call that negative 1i, root negative 1i. Okay? All right, simple enough. Let's look at the next one. Okay? It says simplify each expression, and I only have one here. And I only have one here because I want to talk about this for a second. I'm going to move this over here. Okay? And I want you to think about this. It says simplify the expression to I, negative 1, negative I, or 1. Okay? Now think about this. Remember, I is equal to I, right? It's equal to itself. But I squared, remember that's root negative 1 times root negative 1. And whenever I square a square root, I get the number underneath. So I squared is equal to negative 1. Here, let's rewrite each one of these, just so we'll get an idea. I is equal to the square root of negative 1. I squared is equal to the square root of negative 1 times the square root of negative 1, which is just negative 1. Okay, so I squared is equal to negative 1. I cubed, well, that's I squared times I, right? That gives us I cubed. But I squared is equal to negative 1. And I is just equal to I. So our answer is negative I. Okay. All right. I to the 4th. Well, that's I squared times I squared, which is negative 1 times negative 1, and that gives us positive 1. Okay, so I to the 4th is positive 1. All right, and remember, I is I. So I is equal to I squared is negative 1, I cubed is negative I, and I to the 4th is 1, just like all the choices they gave us up here. Well, think about this. I to the 5th is equal to I to the 4th times I. Well, I to the 4th is 1 times I. Well, that's just I. Huh. I to the 6th, well, that's I to the 4th times I squared. I to the 4th is just 1. And I squared is negative 1. Huh. So it looks like it's repeating. I to the 7th is I to the 4th times I cubed. Remember, I to the 4th is just 1, right? And I to the 3rd is, what's I to the 3rd? Negative I. 1 times negative I is negative I. All right? I to the 8th, well, that's just I to the 4th times I to the 4th, which is 1 times 1. So, if I take I to the 23rd, let's see what I've got here. I to the 23rd, well, that's I to the 4th times I to the 4th times I to the 4th, that gives me 12, right? Okay, times I to the 4th, that's 16, times I to the 4th, that's 20, times I to the 3rd, right? Let's see, does that add up to 23? 4 plus 4 is 8, plus 4 is 12, plus 4 is 16, plus 4 is 20, plus 3, that's 23. Well, this is just 1 times 1 times 1 times 1 times 1 times negative I, right? Remember, I cubed was negative I. So my answer is negative I, okay? I to the 24th would have given us another, and that's just 1. But that's not what it was. It was I to the 23rd. Okay, good. Good, I hope you guys are seeing this. It's pretty easy to work with, okay? There's only 4 possible answers for I to any exponent, okay? All right, let's look at example number 3. Okay, here we go. Now, this is just working with I. I've got negative, and remember, whenever I have the negative inside the square root, I rewrite it as root negative 1 times root 12, okay? Well, wait, that's going to be negative I, right? And I need to simplify root 12. Well, that's root 4 times root 3. That's root 2 times root 2. Okay? So this is negative I. This turns into 2. And that is root 3. But this isn't the way we write it. Okay? We put the radical in the back, but it's going to be negative 2I. Okay? We put the I, treat it just like a variable and put it behind the 2. Okay? Good. Easy. Let's simplify 96. That's root 2 times root 48. Root 6 times root 8. Root 2 times root 3. Root 2 times root 4. Root 2 times root 2. Man, that's a lot of stuff. Okay. So let's see. I've got 2 root 2's. That'll give me 2. I've got 2 more root 2's. That'll give me another 2. And I've got root 3 and root 2, which I can't simplify, so that gives me root 6. So this is going to be, what, 4 root 6? All right. So root 96 is 4 root 6 times, let me get rid of all this so I'll have room to work with the negative 54. Root negative 1 times root 54. Root 54 is, let's see, root 9 times root 6. That's root 3 times root 3. And that's root 3 times root 2. Okay, so this pair of 3's gives me 3. And this turns back into root 6. But look, this is I. So it's 3. Here, let me move the 3 over some. 3I root 6 times 3I root 6. Okay. Whew. Now what do we do? Well, just multiply these two things. 4 times 3 is 12. It's not distributing. I don't want to do it that way. You multiply what you can, right? This is 4 times root 6 times 3 times I times root 6. Multiply the 4 and the 3, that gives us 12. The I just stays behind the 12. And root 6 times root 6 is 6. Okay, well now we multiply the 12 and the 6, because we can. And we get 72I. Nice. Nice. The way that's simplified, that was sweet. Okay? Now look at this. This is root negative 16 over root 25. Okay? That's going to be root negative 1 times 4, right? Because root 16, I'm sorry, let me make it root 16. We'll simplify that again. Root 16 all over 5. Okay, well, we know that this is I, this is 4, so that's 4I over 5. Beautiful. Beautiful. All right. Now, let's see what example 4 is. Solve this. Oh, this is easier than the other stuff. Subtract 272 from both sides, and you're going to get x squared is equal to negative 272. Ah, now we know how to deal with this. Take the square root of this side and the square root of that side, and I'm going to get that x is equal to plus or minus, because remember, anytime there's a variable under the radical, we got to get plus and minus, right? The square root of negative 272. All right, well, let's go over here and we're going to simplify that. Square root negative 272. Well, that's square root negative 1 times square root 272. This is going to be square root 2 times square root 136. That's square root 2 times the square root of 68, I think. These two I can circle. This is square root 2 times square root 34. This is root 2 times root 17. Those are both prime. Okay, I'm getting there. Stick with me. All right? Let me extend the page a bit so we'll have some room. So look, root 2, root 2, root 2, root 2, root 17. All right? This turns into 2, that turns into 2, and I'm left with 17. So 4 root 17, but wait a minute, don't forget. Okay, bring it down here. Where do I put the I, Mr. C? Right behind the regular number. 4I root 17. So now when I come up here, it's x is equal to plus or minus, not root negative 272, but 4I root 17. Done. Done. You guys are ready. Good job. I'm glad we're finally here. Now we can finally talk about I. These are unreal numbers though, they're not real numbers. So when you see real number solutions, you know that this doesn't have any real number solutions. It has imaginary solutions, but not real number solutions. All right, good job guys. You're ready. See you on Monday.